Hello everyone, welcome to SI UK India webinar. Today, thank you for joining us. We are now live with ETS Global. Today we have Patrick with us. He will be taking us through this webinar. We will answer all the questions after the presentation during the Q&A session. So let's start the webinar. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Yukti. And if you could just bear with me a moment, I'll share my screen as well. Yukti, can you see my screen here?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Fantastic. Well, hi everybody, and thank you so much for joining this session today. My name's Patrick, and I'm the Client Relations Manager for ETS based here in the UK. My role involves working closely with UK universities and UK-bound students, such as yourselves, to enhance awareness of the TOEFL test and to ensure that everybody is fully aware of the many opportunities that the TOEFL test offers. I'm truly pleased to be delivering this webinar to students in India. I've had the real good fortune of visiting India on many occasions in the past, both for work and for vacation purposes as well. And it really is a wonderful, warm, friendly country, which I hope to be able to visit someday in the future as well. And I'm also really grateful to our partners, SI UK, who've helped organise and promote today's session. I know that many of you will be considering applying to the UK for your university studies, and SI UK can help you with that. Or you might already be holding offer letters and thinking about your next steps as well. And I also know that the availability of funding, and particularly in the form of scholarships, is something that you're likely to be paying very close attention to at the moment. So in today's session, I'm going to try and give you a good understanding of what scholarships are, why UK universities offer them. And I also want to try and help you understand how beneficial it will be for you to consider the TOEFL internet-based test, the IBT, for your university and scholarship applications. The TOEFL IBT is the sort of premier and preferred test of English communication globally, and it's accepted by 100%, so all of the UK universities. It's convenient. We have test centres all over India, and the option to take the test at home via our TOEFL IBT Home Edition. And we've recently launched really significant enhancements to the test to make your experience better. So TOEFL now has a shorter running time, instant reporting of reading and of provisional reading and listening scores, and reporting of your final scores within 4 to 8 days, which is, you know, a really short time scale, and it's one of many kind of new benefits of the TOEFL test. So it's an exciting time to be applying for study in the UK, and it's an exciting time to be taking the TOEFL test. And I'm really looking forward to giving you some more information on both of those things today. Of course, I'll be happy to take questions at the end of the session, so do feel free to post them in the comments section on the YouTube stream, and Yukti and the team will make sure I get those questions at the end of the presentation. But firstly, what am I going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to begin by giving you just a little bit of information about me and my background, as well as the overall aims of today's session. I'd also like to give you a better understanding of why UK universities offer the scholarships they do and what types of scholarships are available. Because, as I'm sure you know, there are loads of different possibilities out there, and you'll need to be on top of your game to identify really all the most relevant ones and to maximise your chances of winning them. So with this in mind, I'm also going to offer what I hope are a few kind of trade secrets from the UK university sector when it comes to scholarships for international students. And I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment, but my main aim is that this presentation will give you something of an inside track on the way that universities in the UK view and administer their scholarships. And finally, of course, I want to help guide you and provide sort of helpful advice on the best ways to actually apply successfully for scholarships, because there's a lot to consider, and your approach to applying will be really important. So at the very heart of this will be demonstrating your ability to communicate, particularly in the English language. And that's why we think that the TOEFL test is such a key component of a successful UK scholarship application. But firstly, sort of a little bit about me. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm the Client Relations Manager for ETS here in the UK. But prior to this, I worked for a leading UK university, a member of the Russell Group for 15 years. So I was based in the international office in the recruitment team at Cardiff University. And I'm sure many of you will be aware of Cardiff or will have family or friends who have studied there. And during my time at Cardiff, I was very closely involved in scholarship schemes. In fact, it's fair to say I saw them from all angles. So, for example, I would work on the structure and the design of Cardiff University's own scholarship schemes for international students. But I would also lead on the university's partnerships with external scholarship providers, including people like the Chevening and the Commonwealth commissions. I'd work with the marketing team to decide on how we promote our scholarships to audiences all over the world. And then finally, I would travel to many countries, including, I'm pleased to say, India, to meet prospective students like yourselves and to spread the word about the scholarships that were available. So one of the things I was well aware of throughout this period was the importance of English language testing and of students picking up the right test to get them to where they need to be, both in terms of their academic applications and their scholarship applications. And I guess that's one of the reasons I was so pleased to join ETS and so kind of proud to promote the TOEFL test, because it will be a really important tool in your kind of arsenal when it comes to applying for scholarships to study in the UK. So I guess in light of all this, I hope it's fair to say that I'm able to offer a real inside track on UK scholarships. Scholarships are definitely the thing that I was most asked about by students during my time working for a university. And that applies across the world, you know, in every country I ever traveled to, but very much so in India. So I hope I'm able to help you with some useful information today. And here's what it is I'm hoping to achieve by the end of today's session. I don't think I need to talk through all of these points, as we already kind of touched upon most of them in my content slide. But just to reiterate, my main aim is to get you to a really great place where you know exactly the approach that you should take to applying for scholarships. And in addition to that, I've got some hugely exciting news to share about TOEFL scholarships, available exclusively for students from India. So the TOEFL test doesn't just help you to achieve scholarships at the UK universities, it also gives you the opportunity to win your own TOEFL scholarship. And I'll share all the information about how you do that later in my presentation. I'm also going to share kind of helpful tips and advice throughout the presentation in the orange bars that you see on each of my slides. So I guess my first tip is a straightforward one, which is notebook at the ready. You know, make sure you guys take some good notes throughout this presentation. And if there's any information you miss, you're more than welcome to raise this as a question in the chat. Okay, so the first question I want to consider is, I guess, the all-important question of why. Why do UK universities offer scholarships to international students? Well, there are obviously a whole range of reasons for this, and I don't want to sound cynical here. You know, I am going to talk a little bit about how offering scholarships benefits the UK universities themselves. But I have to start by saying the most important reason is that UK universities really do recognise how much international students bring to their campuses and how much you guys enrich and diversify university life. But I'd be lying if I said there weren't other reasons too. You know, I don't think it's any great revelation to say that UK universities want the best students. After all, the UK is well known for the quality of its higher education, and universities know also that students from India are among the best of all. So, you know, they do want to incentivize you to enroll with them. And whilst all universities will have the best interests of their applicants at heart, sure, they also want to outdo their competitors, and they want to beat them to the most academically able students. So it is competitive. Now, I know that many of you will be interested in full scholarships, And whilst I can't speak for all UK universities, I think it's probably fair to say that the kind of full ride scholarship seen very often in the US is not something that tends to be widely available in the UK. But of course, UK universities do need to compete with their American counterparts. And so many will offer scholarships, perhaps a larger number of smaller partial scholarships to ensure that they remain competitive with the US. Another thing to remember is that UK universities also want great stories, particularly the marketing departments. They want to show the world that they have enrolled the best and most deserving students. So they're looking out for eye-catching scholarship applications. And it would be really unusual to see a scholarship scheme, including the TOEFL scholarship scheme, actually, which doesn't require the winners to sort of operate as ambassadors for the university, perhaps through marketing or blogs or attending events. Ultimately, the thing to bear in mind is that UK universities really do want well-qualified Indian students. And when you've applied, they also want to ensure that you commit to them. So this process of what we call kind of conversion is very important to the universities. And scholarships can be used as a way both to recognise your academic excellence, but also to incentivise you as a student to choose a particular university. So when I say here the bottom line matters, I don't mean it's the only thing that matters. There is much more to consider than money, but universities want you for a whole range of reasons. So bear in mind my key sort of tip for this slide, which is don't forget your value to the universities themselves. And that doesn't just mean in terms of the fees you pay. It's also about your value as a great student and a strong future ambassador for that university. One thing I want to add here is that it's precisely because of this value that you bring to the UK universities that a test like TOEFL is so important. That's because the TOEFL test is well trusted, understood, and viewed very positively by UK universities. And those universities want scholarship winners who are great communicators. The TOEFL test offers you the opportunity to show the universities how much of an asset you will be to their campuses. Okay, so all of that kind of leads me on to my next slide, which sets out, I guess, a few kind of insider secrets from someone who's been involved in scholarship schemes for many years. And the main area of focus here is the structure and makeup of the scholarship programs and schemes themselves. So my first point here is that, as we've seen, universities are operating in a very competitive environment. But that doesn't necessarily mean they want more applications. So, programs at UK universities can be very competitive, resources needed to process the applications. And so scholarship schemes are increasingly geared towards attracting good quality students and also securing commitment from them to the universities themselves. So we're kind of back to that conversion point again. As I'm sure you'll know, universities have student recruitment priorities, and many will have objectives or even targets for recruitments of students from across the world. Now, smart, clever universities will build their scholarship schemes in such a way as to reflect those priorities. So, for example, a university which wants to fill places on its MBA program might offer additional incentives or scholarships, whereas a particularly popular program elsewhere in that university's business school may not even be eligible for scholarships at all. What this means in practice is that approaches to scholarships can differ across different universities. So, you need to be sure to shop around, and you need to try to find not only the scholarships with the most generous awards, but also any that may be kind of tailored towards your particular choice of program. And also, remember, approaches can differ even within individual universities. So look, I get it. It's maybe not ideal from your perspective as someone viewing a university website, but in some cases, different faculties, different academic areas within universities will have the authority to organise their own scholarship schemes, and they may market them separately to the central university scheme. That can be, I guess, a little frustrating, but it does mean that if you do your research and dig around on what's there, not just the headline scholarships advertised, you might be able to find additional scholarships, or you may find that there's diversity within the university's headline scholarship scheme, which might allow greater awards or different processes for certain programs or certain levels of study. Now, because of this variance in approaches, you need to ensure that your application is as watertight as it can be. And again, that's where we come in. The TOEFL test can be really useful in this regard. It's a trusted, relied upon language test, and TOEFL is understood and accepted by both admissions tutors and scholarship panels in so many universities. All of them, accept the test, and it will be, understood by review panels or any of the kind of bodies that are looking at scholarship applications. And finally, for this slide, two pieces of good news. Scholarship schemes can be administered in different departments within universities. But I think it's probably fair to say that the majority are administered by international offices, such as the one I used to work in. Now, this is good news. And that's not because international offices will interpret the rules or the regulations any differently. They won't, they'll be consistent with the terms and conditions of any particular scholarship scheme. But international offices exist because they understand that international students have different needs, different expectations, and may need extra support in applying to a university. So they are more able to consider things usually from your perspective. If, for example, your documents have been delayed for reasons beyond your control. So, international offices can be seen as kind of on your side, and you can have confidence that they'll have your best interests at heart, both when designing and sort of structuring scholarship schemes, but also administering them. And finally, the really good news, as students from India, you're all in a fairly positive position. UK universities understand how important India is, partly because of the historic links between the UK and India, but also partly because of the numbers of excellent Indian students they welcome onto campus every year. So look, let's be honest, they also know that you guys in India really value scholarships, and you have expectations, quite rightly, of generous incentives. And so as a result, lots of universities, again, Cardiff, my former university, is a good example of this, will offer specific and often more generous scholarships for Indian students. Now, these might be for selected programs, but they can often be really attractive scholarships and way kind of higher than the ones offered to international students in general. So there's my tip for this slide. If you're inquiring about scholarships, be sure to ask about options for Indian students and not just for students generally or for international students generally, because, asking specifically about India could potentially unlock more opportunities. Right, so moving on to the different types of scholarship, and it obviously goes without saying that there are lots of different types of scholarship kind of out there. I certainly recommend you doing your own research and learning more about the options available. And actually, the SI UK website is a really good place to start with that. I really like the way SI UK have identified three broad sort of types of scholarship, and these are university funded, government funded, and privately funded. Now, these are kind of self-explanatory, but university funded scholarships are those offered solely by the universities. Government funded are those offered by central or regional government in the UK, and that includes things such as the Chevening or the Commonwealth programmes, which you may already be aware of. Privately funded scholarships would be those offered by a company or business or another entity, either in India, the UK, or indeed anywhere else in the world. And of course, these categories are, they are fairly self-explanatory, but it makes a huge amount of sense to divide up scholarships in this way. However, I'm hoping to bring the kind of insider perspective here. So from the university perspective, someone involved in scholarship schemes within a university, there's perhaps another way we can look at them. So when setting out their own scholarship strategies, universities will often look to differentiate between what we might call, I guess, prestige scholarships, automatic scholarships, and partner scholarships. Now, these aren't official terms, they're my own definitions, but I do think these headings kind of capture a number of the schemes that are out there. In essence, prestige scholarship is the type of award which is often higher value, sometimes even possibly a full scholarship, although rarely, but these are usually very limited in number. So if you apply for a scholarship like this, you're competing with a huge amount of other students, and you need to do all you can to make sure your application stands out. Usually you'll be given a question or a number of questions to answer so that you can tell the university more about yourself. And very often that will require information such as how winning the scholarship will help you to develop your life and develop your career, or how you will give something back to your community by winning the scholarship. So, you'll need to answer questions or a statement of purpose or an essay, and you'll usually need excellent academic grades for this kind of scholarship. Some of these will also look at factors such as English language competency. So, be sure you're ready to book that TOEFL test. And this type of scholarship is generally assessed by panels, either from the international office or from academic schools, or, for the really prestigious kind of high value scholarships, there'll likely be some kind of senior review panel where the really high ranking academics make their own assessments. Now, the second of these, and kind of automatic scholarship, as I've called it, is different in that it's likely to be a smaller award, spread more widely across a number of students. These scholarships are still prestigious, but they're aimed more at kind of spreading scholarship funding across a wider set of students. And of course, they can vary by university, but in many cases, they will require you to achieve a particular academic score. In general, you won't need to fill out a form for these scholarships. You would be considered automatically, but you do need to show the appropriate academic grades and possibly English language grades as well. Some universities will ask you to achieve the equivalent of a first-class degree, so I guess around 70% in a BBA or BEng or similar. And some universities will just say we need you to successfully meet or exceed the conditions of your offer. So again, it's important to just have your plans in place to book your TOEFL test if English language evidence is required by your offer, or perhaps even if it isn't. Whilst these are almost always kind of partial scholarships, they can be quite generous and they can vary by country or academic course. And some universities will have special allocations for particular countries, while others may include kind of a wider range of programs in their automatic scholarship schemes. So again, it's important you do your research and compare scholarships with fee levels, because that's important too at different universities. These are generally applied as an automatic discount on your tuition fee. My third and kind of final category here is partner scholarships. And this is a very broad category, but it's a really relevant one because we at TOEFL are offering our own scholarships in this kind of category. This usually involves kind of two partners, one of them very often the university, combining to sort of combine scholarship awards. So this is very often kind of particular to specific countries. And universities might partner with governments to offer scholarships. So an example here might be the Welsh Government Global Wales Programme or the Scottish Saltire scholarships. I know that the Welsh version offers, I think it's a postgraduate award of £10,000, and that's kind of offered in partnership with universities in Wales, for example. But these could also be funded completely by external partners. So, for example, many universities choose India as a country in which to offer their British Council Great Scholarships, which you may have heard of. Again, these are awards of, I think, £10,000, and they're available to postgraduate students as well. Incidentally, the British Council also offers awards on a yearly basis for women in science, technology, education and mathematics in STEM subjects. And it also works in partnership with an organisation called the Charles Wallace India Trust to offer a kind of a range of arts-based scholarships to Indian students as well. And finally, this category can involve kind of partnerships between two organisations entirely separate to the university or the government. And in fact, we at TOEFL are active in this space. We're offering a number of fantastic scholarships to Indian students this year in collaboration with our partners at NISAU, which is the National Indian Students and Alumni Union of the UK. We're hugely excited by these scholarships, and I'm looking forward to telling you more on how to apply for them in just a moment. And my top tip for this slide, well, it essentially boils down to do your research again. Universities will have centralised scholarship schemes offered and administered by the university as a whole. But many, as I've said earlier, will also offer scholarships at the level of academic school or programme. And sometimes these scholarships have been running for many years. And if I'm honest, academic staff sometimes feel they don't want to roll these schemes into the central programmes offered by the main university. So by checking the information pages for your course, you may learn more about potential scholarships. And if you check out all the options available, be sure to apply to all of the ones that you are eligible for. Spread your bets. It really does make sense. So just for info, really, here are some examples of recent scholarships launched for Indian students in the UK by UK universities and by other partner bodies. So as you can probably see here, there's variety even within these examples, but the key factor is that all three of these examples are aimed specifically at Indian students. So we see Imperial here in the top left. They've launched a really significant scholarship fund for Indian students. Birmingham here in the top right has launched Indian students in honour of the university's Chancellor, Lord Bill Moria. And of course, the ETS scholarships, which I mentioned just a moment ago, which offer really great opportunities for TOEFL test takers. Next up is an example of the kind of questions you might be asked when applying for a kind of prestige type scholarship. So this one is from the University of Bristol. great UK university. And, as you can see, they're asking questions here about you and your academic ability and skills. So, tell us about any skill, they are saying, tell us about any special skills or anything, anything remarkable that you've achieved. They are asking you to tell them about how you will operate as an ambassador for the university after you've graduated or during your study, and how you will influence networks and communities within the university community. And also sort of how your contribution will link to your kind of chosen goals, your career plans, your future goals. And clearly with this particular scheme, they're talking about think big and achieving goals. So, they really want their candidates to link to that kind of ambitious agenda. And they also ask about, why have you chosen to study at this university? And they're looking for that kind of commitment to Bristol University in that section. Those are kind of, they're good questions. They're not uncommon for this type of scholarship scheme. Here we have an example of what I'm calling the more kind of automatic scholarship scheme. This one's from the University of Liverpool. And you can see that they're offering a £2,500 tuition fee reduction. And the main criterion really is a first-class degree. So I don't know how Liverpool equate that to an Indian degree. I think at Cardiff we used to say it's around 70%. So they have the equivalences information on their website. So it's probably something similar to that. And the main point here is there are no questions, no forms to fill in, no sort of extra additional information needed. This award would be automatic based on achieving the required grade. Okay. So all of this leads me to, I guess, the really important question, which is what is the best way to actually win a scholarship? And I think there's quite a lot of advice I can provide on this, and it does depend on which kind of scholarship you're hoping to apply to. So my top tip here is to be kind of really aware of the processes, fully aware of any administrative challenges you may face. I think on the sort of prestige scholarships, the important thing to think about is those statements of purpose, and it is those essays and those questions that you need to answer. So you have to stand out, you have to be eye-catching. That first sentence is really important. Work on that, as best you can, and really make that punchy and interesting for review panels. Sell yourself, but be truthful. Don't lie. I'm sure you wouldn't, but really, really don't. And yes, talk about challenges you've faced, but don't focus only on those. I've been on scholarship review panels and read some heartrending stories from really deserving scholarship applicants, and I've really felt for those people, but they have not always included much information beyond the challenges that they have faced. And whilst, facing and overcoming challenges is part of a good application, it can't be the kind of totality of it. There needs to be more there. You don't have to save the world. And what I mean by that, if you're a medicine student who wants to launch a fantastic scheme to help those in poor communities, or, to do amazing things, then that is great. And that will be viewed highly. But equally, if you're a business student who wants to start your own business and has great innovative ideas, you don't have to, unless the scholarship is specifically aimed at philanthropy or activism or giving something back, you don't have to demonstrate that you're doing that, unless you're specifically asked to do it. You have to be really, really good, but it doesn't always have to be the most sort of progressive or inspiring story. Every application should be assessed on its own merits. But remember, universities do like stories. They are organizations for whom stories are very important. So please be original, please help yourself stand out, and always link to your academic program. So when you're writing these statements, always make sure you're regularly linking back to the program you've applied for and how taking that program will help you achieve your goals. Now, when it comes to automatic scholarships, as we've called them, it's a little bit more practical, but it's about deadlines and it's about understanding process. So just be sure that you have everything in place, and it'll be really important to speak to your counsellors at SIUK about this. As long as you've got all the ideas of the deadlines in your head, you should be fine. Make sure you're able to submit your documents by the point at which the university wants to see them. That's really super important. And make sure you've got the correct documents. Particularly if you're being asked to show your final grade, you ideally need something that does show that final grade, or a letter from your university to get that across, because that will be necessary, really. one other thing I always advise on that, please be assured that if you meet those criteria, you will get that scholarship. I've been asked before about similar schemes, am I definitely going to be awarded this amount? Well, you're not definitely going to be awarded it if you don't meet the criteria. But if you do, then yes, it's like a conditional offer. Universities will honour that commitment to that scholarship as long as you meet the requirements. And finally, on the partner side of things, I think, it's really important that, if you're applying for a Chevening or a Commonwealth scholarship, check the Chevening or Commonwealth websites as well as the university ones and reach out to them if you need to as well. Again, be really clear on processes, understand factors such as whether your tuition fee deposit might be waived if you're accepted for the scholarship, whether you're considered a sponsored student or a scholarship student. And if you can speak to previous winners, and some of the scholarship schemes do link you to previous winners, then do that. Basically, and my top tip here is be sure of any impacts administratively, particularly on your visa application. There shouldn't be any issues, but if you win a scholarship that requires a reduction in your tuition fee or an amount set against your tuition fee, you may need to update your CAS, which is the document that allows you to apply for your visa. And that's pretty straightforward, but you need to set the wheels in motion as soon as you can, and SIUK can help you with all of that, really. Okay, so the bit that's really exciting for me is to talk now about the UK-India scholarships for being offered by TOEFL. And I briefly touched on this earlier. We're really, really proud of these scholarships. We're offering them in partnership with NISAO, as I said, the Alumni Union for Indian Students and Indian Alumni in the UK. And we're proud to say we're offering them in honour of, well, two things: the 75th anniversary of ETS, the company that I work for, and of course, the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. So, really, really auspicious occasion. And we're very, very proud that those events coincide. So we launched these scholarships in honor of that, in honor of those events, and they really inspired these awards. Now, what I was going to do is drop the link into the chat with further information on the scholarships and ask you all to bookmark that link because you will find that really useful and it will give you that additional information that you need on these scholarships. I'm conscious that most of you are on YouTube rather than in the actual chat. So what I'm going to do is drop it into the YouTube comments when we have questions later on today so that you have the full kind of range of information, not only on the awards, but also the application portal to apply. But in short, ETS is offering 25 Indian students scholarships of $3,000, so about rupees 2.4 lakhs. The successful students will receive the award funding directly from ETS. It isn't a fee waiver or a discount. It's direct funding from us to the winners. And you can use this money to fund things like books, housing, transportation, anything else related to your studies in the UK. Now, to win the awards, you need to have an offer from a UK university. So if you haven't applied yet, you really should speak to SIUK and think about getting moving quickly on that. You'll also need a list of your personal and academic achievements, and you'll need an essay about the social impact that your winning the awards will have. And finally, of course, you need to take the TOEFL test, and you'll need a score of at least 75. So if you're interested in these scholarships, it's worth getting that test booked as soon as is viable for you. Of course, like so many other schemes, we'll expect you to be a great ambassador for the scholarships and for the TOEFL test if you do successfully win one of these awards. And that might be through attending events or writing posts for us or being part of our campaigns, all of which will look great on your resume or your CV. So hopefully a benefit as well. I should finally add that one of the great advantages of these scholarships is because they're awarded as direct funding to you and they're designed to cover living costs and not tuition fees, you may be able to combine them with scholarships given by UK universities. Now, of course, I can't make any guarantee on that because different universities will have their own policies and some will state it's not possible to combine two different scholarships. However, I kind of suspect that in many cases, even if you win a university scholarship, which remember is usually applied as a discount on your tuition fee, you should be able to also avail the TOEFL NISAO scholarship because they're funding different areas of your student experience. So I can't say that for certain, but it is a possible advantage of these scholarships as well. So as well as posting the link in the chat later, I've also included it on the slides here, and we'll make sure you get a copy of these slides after the event so you can look this up. And if you do choose to apply, good luck. So For the last sort of 10 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about something that's really important, which is the ways that the TOEFL test can help you to win one of these scholarships. And then I'll take questions from there on in. And I'd like to go into that in a bit more detail now. Now, look, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but the TOEFL IBT test really is a great option for Indian students who are thinking of applying for scholarships. I mentioned previously that the test is accepted by every single UK university, 100%, but it's also a really convenient test for Indian students because there are test centres all over the country, and I'll show you some information on that a little bit later. We also have the TOEFL Home Edition, which allows you to take the test online from the comfort of your own home, but it's not just about convenience. The TOEFL test offers so many benefits when compared to other English language tests. It's cost effective at, I think it's rupees 16,900. It offers a really convenient and smooth registration and scheduling process, and it also offers a real wealth of practice material, so you can be as well prepared as possible and achieve the highest possible score. Look, not all UK university scholarships require a language test, but some do, and even some of those that don't may look favourably on a high TOEFL score, if they kind of need a means to distinguish between two very similar candidates, for example. So put simply, you might achieve extra points in scholarship applications, particularly for prestige scholarships, if you have a strong score in a TOEFL test and can demonstrate that kind of high level of your communication skills in English. And best of all, as I touched upon earlier, we've recently enhanced the test to make it even more friendly for you as the user. We've managed to reduce the testing time from 3 hours to 2 without affecting the quality of the test. And we now have a shorter registration process. We have a better experience for scheduling tests. We have a more intuitive interface and navigation. We have optimization so that you can kind of navigate the test on your mobile device much more easily. It's just a great package. Like most other language tests, we measure the kind of core skills of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And our students have been particularly excited about the fact that with our new enhancements, we offer instant kind of unofficial feedback on your reading and listening scores immediately at the end of the test. And we also communicate the day on which your final scores will be published, which gives you, immediately after doing the test, you have an understanding of the exact day where you'll receive your final results. And that's usually something like 4 to 8 days after taking the test. So way faster than some of our competitors. So, you know, there's no question that the TOEFL test is really well placed to meet the needs of scholarship-hungry students from India. And I guess, I'd like to give you a little bit more information on the format of the test itself and some top tips to help you achieve that highest possible score and unlock those scholarships. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, the test has been reduced from 3 hours to 2. So this slide shows at the top the previous structure of the test, and below that the new enhanced structure. And all 4 elements, reading, speaking, writing, and listening, are still in place. The assessment works basically as follows. So for reading, you'll answer 20 questions based on 2 reading passages. For listening, you'll answer 28 questions based on, I think, 3 lectures and 2 conversations. For speaking, you'll complete 4 separate tasks, one of which will be an independent task. And for writing, you'll complete, it's a sort of an integrated task and also a task based upon writing for an academic discussion. Now, there's no need to be daunted by any of this. The test taker process is so smooth and so seamless that, we make it as straightforward as possible for you to concentrate on what matters, which is demonstrating your English communication skills. And many of our UK partner universities will accept what's called My Best scores, which is an opportunity for you to use the highest scores you achieve in each skill section across a number of attempts at the TOEFL test. So basically, we do all we can to ensure that you're fully prepared in advance of your TOEFL test. One thing I strongly recommend you do, I'll just flick back to the previous slide because my tip here was to download the TOEFL Go app, which is a free app, and it contains a wealth of useful information to help you navigate the TOEFL test. So, for example, it has a full mock TOEFL test within the app. It has additional training for all 4 skill areas. It has automated scoring, which is powered by AI. So you'll be able to get a really good idea of your level, both of English competency, but also test preparedness in advance of the test itself. And if you'd like some further tips to help ensure you get that kind of highest possible score, here are some I pulled together at the start of this presentation. So for the reading section, I always say, make sure you read widely. And that means not just the things that interest you, but also a broader and wider pool of literature. It doesn't have to kind of all be academic in nature, but the more you read, the more likely you are to succeed. For writing, I usually emphasize structure. So it's not just a case of being able to write, but also kind of understanding how words make up sentences, how sentences make up paragraphs, and how paragraphs build into longer pieces such as essays or articles or books. Studying the structure of written texts can be really helpful when it comes to the TOEFL test. And on speaking, I can't emphasize enough that practice, practice, practice is the key. I know it's no fun to hear your own voice recorded sometimes, but honestly, it will help so much if you can record and re-record yourself speaking in academic English, and then assess and continually kind of self-evaluate your own levels. And on listening, finally, I always recommend listening for signals. And what I mean by that is the kind of words that are commonly used in English to make connections between ideas or concepts. So those kind of linking words can be really invaluable in helping unlock the meaning of a sentence in a kind of speedy way. And they really can help you understand the way a conversation is structured. So in that sense, it's about familiarization, and that's at the heart of this approach. I've got plenty of other tips as well, but sadly, probably not the time to talk through them all right now, but I'll be sure to circulate some further tips and advice after the session today. And I'll also, of course, circulate this information, which takes you to the registration page for the TOEFL test. You know, if you decide you're ready to go, it's time for you to take the test. You can sign up really quickly and easily through the top link here. Whether you choose to test at home or test at the test center in India, we've got a really wide range of information as well that should answer any questions you may have about practicalities or policy or process. And these can be found in our TOEFL information bulletin, which is posted on our website, or of course, our inquiries teams can help you with any practical questions you may have. And here, just for your information, is a list of the Indian states where we have test centres. So we've got a huge network of test centres across the country. And if you do choose to take the test on a face-to-face basis, you can search for your nearest test centre when you go online to register. Okay. All that's left for me to do, I think, is to share a few kind of useful or hopefully useful links, which, of course, we'll also circulate to you after the session itself. So these links on this slide will provide further tips and information on each element of the TOEFL test, including the types of questions you'll find in each of the assessments for each of the 4 sections. And here we have some further useful links covering everything really from test preparation to what to expect on test day. And that really brings me to the close of my presentation today. So thank you all so much for coming along. And I'm, of course, really happy now to take any questions. I've included my contact details here, but feel free to just contact me directly by email if you'd like to do so. ETS also has a TOEFL office in India, and I've included contact details here for, it's a really friendly and helpful India team. So you can always get in touch with them as well. And all that remains really is for me to say thank you again. I hope that you make it to the UK for your studies. I hope that you're all successful in your scholarship applications and your academic study applications. And if you've got any questions at all, I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for taking out time and giving us this insightful presentation. Now time for Q&A session. I will call out the question from the YouTube chat box.
Okay.
So the first question is, what are the visa and application deadlines?
Good question. So what you'll need to do is ensure, and again, this is, it'll be really important that you speak to SI UK throughout this process, but ensure you need enough time, so that you leave enough time. So you will have to have an unconditional offer from a UK university in order to apply for your visa. When you have an unconditional offer, and that means, after you've satisfied all the requirements for that university's program, you will need to then receive what's called a CAS, which is a confirmation of acceptance for study from your university. Now, previously, a few years ago, universities could not release those CAS details until 3 months before the start date of your course, which meant that usually those would go out around the end of June. I think, and Yukti can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think that's now been extended to 6 months. So lots of universities will be releasing their CAS statements, earlier in the year, often around kind of springtime in the UK. The truth is there's kind of technically no deadline to apply for your visa, but I would recommend, once you've got your CAS, you need to apply as soon as possible thereafter. It's a fairly seamless process, but in case anything goes wrong, in case there are any delays, or in case there are any problems, you do need to leave that additional time. If you're an undergraduate student, it's important to remember that lots of undergraduate students in the UK don't get their results until August. So it can go as late as that, and that's fine. You can get your kind of CAS in place. And if you're coming for a January start, you're probably looking at around this time of year, October, where you get your CAS and start to make your visa application. The truth is, for every program at every university, as long as you allow yourself enough time, you should be able to navigate the visa process. And I will just add to that your English language test is really important as well. So, whilst we have good availability for our TOEFL tests in India and our online test as well, if you need a test and you want to take the TOEFL test, it's worth making sure you're prepared, and then as soon as you know you're prepared, getting that test booked in as early as possible, just so that you can meet those conditions and move on to the visa stage.
Okay, so next question is it possible to apply for a scholarship for January start?
That will depend on different universities, but I suspect the answer is yes. Certainly with regard to our own ETS NISAU scholarships, the answer absolutely is yes. So we have those scholarships available. And you know what? I think on my slide, I included the deadlines, but didn't say them out loud. So I will post the link to those. But I think the deadline for those is the end of October. I'm going to just flick back through my slides and I'll confirm when the decision is made on those as well. Let me just reopen that. Yeah, so the deadline for applications is 31st of October, as I said, and then winners would be notified in November 2023. And yes, those scholarships can be put towards January study. Now, in terms of the university scholarships, it's worth checking with your individual university, but I would imagine that some universities will still have scholarships available for January starts. I think with the external ones like Chevening, Commonwealth, British Council Great Scholarships, they're more likely to be geared towards September start students. But again, it's worth checking all of those individually, because there may be some provision for January start as well.
Okay. Does ETS has any benefits over IELTS?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that I spoke about really when I was talking about the TOEFL test. So the enhancements to the test, which I know I mentioned a few times, it's something that we're really, really excited about. We've looked at our user experience and we've really kind of gone through every kind of phase of the process. And we feel really confident that our kind of suite of products allow students to be better prepared than any other test out there. So, by downloading that TOEFL Go app, you get access to that mock test. You get that kind of additional information and typical questions on reading, writing, speaking, and listening aspects. You also get access to a whole range of information around what you need to do to prepare for the test. We have a really seamless registration process and a really seamless test taker process as well. We have human proctoring. So what that means is that if you were taking the home test and you experienced any issues, you shouldn't do, but if you had a problem with your internet connection or something like that, you can communicate with your proctor whilst you're taking the test. And the other thing that we have is that shortened test time. So, the 2-hour TOEFL test, we think, and when we asked students about this, because obviously we did our market research on that was received extremely positively by students from across the world. The other thing I would note is the turnaround on test results. And I have to be honest and say, I don't know what the IELTS, the current kind of turnaround on test results is for IELTS. However, we are saying 4 to 8 days is generally when you'll get your results. There can be some exceptions, but in general, that's what you would look for. And we're really proud of that as well. We think that gives you, that surety that you're going to get your test results in pretty quick time, and you will know the exact date that you're going to get them, because the portal that you use will tell you that at the end of your test.
Okay. Can you please tell me the deadline for January 2024 intake?
That will depend on the university. So I can give you the deadline for our scholarships, which is the end of October, as I say, so you do need to apply by then. And actually, Yukti, is there a way obviously we'll share that link. Is there a way I can share the link with you and you can drop it in the YouTube comments if I kind of do that in real time now, or is that not going to be possible?
Yeah, that's possible. If you share on the Zoom chat, I'll just share on the YouTube with students.
That's great. Okay, so I'll do that now. But yeah, the question of whether there is a deadline for January intake, it will depend on different universities, and actually it will probably depend on different programs within said universities. So the best thing I can say on that is the experts on this will be SIUK as your consultants. So have a chat with them, and they'll be able to advise on the processes and the deadlines for specific universities. I've just shared, Yukti, I've just shared the link to the scholarships. So if possible, to post that in the YouTube comments. And for everybody on YouTube right now, I strongly recommend clicking on that link now, as soon as Yukti's posted it, and bookmarking that page. Because as I said, those scholarships, whilst I can't guarantee it, I think there's a good likelihood that universities will be happy for you to combine them with any scholarships that you may win. Because these are funded, basically these involve us transferring funds to the winner of the scholarships. And because that's not affecting fee levels, it probably won't need to be noted on your CAS, and you could still probably win a university scholarship on top of that. I have to caveat that by saying I can't speak for every university, but I think that's a real benefit of these. So please do take a look, and please do apply.
1 second, I'll just post it on the YouTube.
Thank you.
Okay, the link is posted. So I'll just continue with all the other questions. So next question is, for international students, is there any help to find jobs in the UK after graduation or during the studies?
Yeah, absolutely, there is. So you've probably heard that a couple of years ago, the UK made the really positive move of essentially reintroducing a post-study work scheme for international students. And this is now called the graduate route. And the graduate route, you're probably mostly all aware of it, but it's a scheme that allows you to stay in the UK for up to 2 years after completing your studies. It's a little bit longer if you're a PhD student. And effectively, you can work in any role that you might be able to find during that time. So some students will really go for it and look for roles that are connected to the career that they want to have, and may use that as as the launch pad to trying to remain in the UK, and to build their career there. Others will, use it as an opportunity to get some kind of management experience, or even just more casual kind of work experience, but to build that up and enhance their resumes and, get that experience of living and working in a different country. You can kind of, adapt that as you see fit. And yes, universities can help. So UK universities will have really well-established career services. They will have often faculty-specific career services, particularly in things like business schools. And whilst they won't find you jobs, no university will kind of put you into a job or a placement. What they will be able to do is point you in the right direction, perhaps give you contacts and links, perhaps give you intelligence or information on how to approach or impress employers, and give you that kind of hands-on, often very personalized advice and support that you need when going into the job market. No one can, I can't, and no, if I had a university here with me, they also would say they can't make any guarantees on what job you might get. But yes, those support structures are there. And I think another thing to be aware of there is, at ETS, we have many stories of successful students who've taken the TOEFL test and gone on to study at UK universities, and through a combination of the progress they've made at the UK universities and the launchpad that the TOEFL test provided them, have really found themselves in very good standing in the jobs market. So I know I know SIUK have prepared some video footage of, and I'm not sure if it's launched yet, but it's of an Indian student at King's College University in London, and that's a current student, but he's fantastic, and he took his TOEFL test in order to unlock his study at King's, and no doubt he'll be going on to a great career. So TOEFL can really help you with providing that launchpad to getting to the UK and getting those career aspirations on track.
Okay, so next question is, what is the maximum scholarship student can get?
It depends. So if you're talking about the kind of prestige type scholarships that I mentioned earlier, they can be anything up to a full scholarship. More often than not, I find that they're around the sort of £10,000 to £15,000 mark, but it can vary. You might occasionally see a sort of full scholarship, which includes all travel and living costs and things like that included as well. I will tell a short story here, which is, and I'm not ashamed to say this, at Cardiff, when I worked there, we used to offer a full scholarship, and actually we had one kind of platinum scholarship that included all travel costs, all living costs, flights, etc. And it was an amazing scholarship, but we had to discontinue it. And the reason we had to discontinue it is because it felt so unfair to so many applicants. It's fair to say we were inundated with applications for this scholarship, and so many of these applicants were of exceptionally high quality, and yet we only had that one kind of platinum scholarship. And it just felt wrong, and I think it was, I think we felt that there was a risk that it created false expectations and that it gave too much hope to students when, we simply couldn't offer many more of those. So we took a decision to reduce the amount of scholarship award that we made and spread it more widely across a larger number of students, which is what we did. And that was successful. And I think, helped many more students to be able to achieve their dream of studying in the UK. But the truth is, you will find probably some full scholarships, probably not many, but there probably are some. And you'll also find, within those kind of automatic scholarships that universities offer, it can be anything from £2,000 to £5,000 off either 1 year or all years of study. It can vary hugely from university to university. So, check them all out, really.
So I have covered all the questions from the YouTube chat box. Thank you for answering all the questions so well. Do you want to share any final words?
No, I don't, other than to say thank you, Yukti, and thank you, SIUK, for hosting this session, and that we will circulate the slides as well to attendees. And it's particularly useful to look at all those tips for the TOEFL test. And other than that, no, just contact me though if you do have any questions, or contact our in-country team in India. We'd be really, really happy to help. We're running additional webinar sessions over the next 2 months. So our next one is going to be a focus on the admissions process for UK universities, and then a third one on the kind of experience of being an Indian student studying in the UK. So do come along to those if those are of interest to you as well. And other than that, good luck with your applications. Make sure you apply for the, make sure you register to take the TOEFL test, and make sure you apply for the ETS NISAU scholarship as well, because it's a great opportunity to win, to win that additional funding to help you with your living costs as a student in the UK. And best of luck to everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your... One second. Thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable time. All the audience, if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact SIUK India office. For more update, do follow us on our social media handles. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Patrick.
No problem. Thank you, Yukti. Was that okay? Did that go okay from your side?
Yeah, it was very good.
Ah, good. Thank you. How do you know how many people we had there on YouTube?
I will send you a mail within an 1 hour and let you know how many attendees were there on YouTube.
Sure.
That
That
works.
sounds good. That's great. And if I send you the slides, I guess we captured their contact details as well, right? So if I send you the slides, you're able to circulate to that group.
Yes, you can send me the slides. I'll have to talk to my manager and ask if we can share the slides to the clients and all.
That's fine. If you can't share the slides, that's fine. And maybe in fact, it might be better if I share just some of the links that Sandy wanted me to share. So I can do that. And thank you for dropping the scholarships link into the YouTube chat as well. That was much appreciated.
Yeah, happy to help. No issues with that.
Cool. Oh, can I just check one other thing? I had an email yesterday, which was